Welcome, I'm Todd Raffel with ERE Media, and I am here on the line with Ron Katz. And Ron is an HR consultant in New Rochelle, New York. And he's going to be doing a session at our conference in San Diego in March 28th to 30th, about hiring the unemployed. And that's what we're talking about here. From the discussions I've seen on ERE and on LinkedIn and elsewhere, it seems that recruiters, Ron, fall into a couple camps in general. One camp says, I will hire the best person. I want them just to do a good job. I don't really care exactly what they're doing right now, employed, unemployed, either. The other camp says, no, I mean, to be honest with you, I kind of want people who are employed. I understand the other point of view, but my company kind of just favors people who we can kind of headhunt out of another company. That's just the honest thing. So addressing that other camp, the recruiters who are open to the unemployed, what happens when they bring the candidates to the manager who's not as open? Does the manager get these candidates and they say, you gave me like 4 people and one of them's been out of work for 13 months and the other one's been out of work for 5 months. Is this like your best slate? These like 4 people? I don't know. Is this like what I'm really, working to get people and they're like 2 of them are unemployed? Is that, so what do you do when there's that dichotomy between the recruiter and the manager?
Thanks a lot, Todd. That is one of the most common things that comes up. I don't know any HR professionals, any recruiters who are trying to make their jobs harder by ruling out 14 million potential candidates. Generally, a lot of the resistance does come from the manager, that the HR professional, the recruiter is the person who is generally saying, these are the best candidates. When the manager shows that kind of concern, or I'll use an even stronger word, the bias against people who've been out of work for a while, the best key is to develop a strategy to figure out how to break that down. And what I have found very effective is to really talk to the manager about what they need, what they expect from the position. What are the results they expect? Managers love to talk about results. So get them talking, what do you expect this person to produce when they're in the job? Mm-hmm. Then get them talking, what are the skills that you see the person needing in order to produce those results? Mm-hmm. And then ask them, what if I could find you some really good candidates with those skills and who can produce those results, and the recruiting cost will be very low? Generally, the manager will be really happy about that because managers love to keep the expenses low.
Yeah.
Then they see that the candidate's unemployed and they start to get nervous, because they start worrying about, well, why are they unemployed? Can they get back into the flow of things? All the myths that have grown up around people who are out of work for 6 months, a year, 18 months. In those situations, you have to combat those myths by saying, wait, these are the skills that we talked about. This is what this, look at the list of accomplishments. The person's been able to do it, maybe even in this field.
Yeah.
What's wrong with this person? And get them really to enunciate what their concern is. One of the things it's analogous to back in the past when a lot of times we had to do a blind resume exercise. When you felt that you had a manager who had some biases, you would show them blind resumes, so they couldn't tell if the candidate was black or white, male or female, older or younger, and said, here's two resumes, pick one. And you can do the same kind of strategy with people who've been out of work.
What is, and you've kind of hinted at this a couple of times, you talked about myths, and then just now you talked about the blind resume. What is the reason for the bias? Is it something that's kind of, like with old versus young, I don't think it's about old versus young, it's about some perception that maybe old people or some have lost their passion or they're just not as energetic or something. There's probably and with, race or gender, there's probably some hidden stereotype people have, some reason they would want to discriminate. So with the unemployed, what is it? Is it that they're seen as more active of a job seeker and less passive, and that's the ultimate discrimination, and that's the problem? Or is it just that they're out of job and so they think, oh, they got laid off, there's something wrong with them?
Yeah, a lot of it is that second thing. There is still a lot of the stigma that, well, if they got laid off, if they're out of work, there's something wrong. They're damaged goods. And that's just not true. I know a lot of people who are just in the wrong place, in the wrong industry, at the wrong time. I have a friend who was doing HR. This woman has been employed for 22 years. Most of the time, for the past 22 years, she's been employed. I think she's never been out of work more than about 4 months. And that was when she was changing jobs or changing industries. Yeah. And one day, they were trying to come up with a new drug. The drug did not get FDA approval. And the company brought everybody into the cafeteria one morning and they said, well, we're shutting our doors at the end of the day. 95 people were out of work. Now, this HR person had nothing to do with whether or not they got FDA approval,
Yeah.
But she's out of work. She not as good. So that is certainly part of it. I think another issue that you referred to is the age issue, that there is a concern that if they're older, they're too set in their ways, they're not going to be able to pick things up quickly, and that there is going to be, this is a really scary one. I've heard managers say, well, they're going to resent their next job. I said, no, they're going to love their next job. But they say no, because they're going to take it out on me. They're never going to be loyal again. They're never going to be trusting. And so they're very skeptical that they can pick it up. There's also one other element that contributes to it, which is that life has passed them by. We all know how quickly technology is changing. I mean, if you bought an iPhone 4, well, you're out of luck. There's something better now. Technology is changing so fast that they're convinced that if you've been out of the workplace for a year, you've fallen too far behind. Personally, I find that's ridiculous. The people who are unemployed very often are learning about the new technologies and because they have the time to.
One last thing, and then let's wrap it up. Is there an element, and if so, how do you get around this, of the HR perception being a problem? And that is, does the manager sometimes think that this is some sort of touchy-feely HR person who's trying to help the candidate more than just fill the job, that they're somehow trying to make a difference in the community or the world by advocating that you consider someone who's unemployed, rather than that the HR person is saying, no, this is actually the best person for this job?
We are close to the business. When you think about it, so many hiring managers, they're always saying, I want the best person, and I want them fast, and don't spend too much money. And when you consider the person who's out of work, and we make the argument, I can find you that person who doesn't have to give 2 or 3 or 4 weeks notice, and it'll be less expensive to recruit that person, and we can get them in quickly, and they will be loyal and dedicated because they're so grateful to this organization. There's all kinds of benefits. We're not doing this to be nice, although there are incredible benefits to the organization besides the expense. I mean, the reputation in your community. When you get a reputation that you will hire people like this who have been out of work for a while, your pipeline is going to be full of excellent candidates, people who through no fault of their own find themselves looking for work. So we do need to keep talking about the bottom line. That's probably the key. And it goes back to that other stigma that you alluded to, the active versus passive. If someone is desperately looking for a job, then the fear also is that they will look somewhere else, that they're just going to take this job so they can fund their job search for the job they really want. Yeah. Well, the job they really want is the one that they can get with you. Yeah. So I don't think that we are that nice. I think that we are business people and we have to act like business people with one eye on the bottom line and one eye on filling our jobs with the best people available.
And with that, we will talk about this more, as I mentioned, in the spring, the end of March in San Diego. The great thing about that is it'll be not just you, but dozens upon dozens of corporate recruiters who can all discuss what they're doing in their companies and get ideas from others. So that will be neat. Thanks, Ron. Ron Katz of Penguin HR Consulting in New Rochelle, New York.
It's been a pleasure, Todd. Thank you so much. I look forward to March.